Hey, world changers, welcome to your podcast. I'm AmickyCarol and I travel the world with a sense of adventure and purpose, exploring, learning, having fun, and meeting remarkable individuals who are transforming their communities and beyond. Join me as we dive into the inspiring journeys of change makers from every corner of the globe. Tune in weekly for stories that might just change your life, ignite your passion, and show you how ordinary people can create extraordinary impact. Subscribe now on your favorite podcast platform and follow us on social media at World Changers PC and get ready to take off. Hi, welcome Marbuen. Lovely to see you. I think the last time we met was in September, wasn't it? Yeah, at the Lausanne conference. Fantastic. So, just for my guests, my listeners, could you tell me, first of all, introduce yourself, who you are, and what you do currently?
Yep. So my name is Marbuen Diaz. I am an ordained church minister, and I work with what's called the Baptist Association. I have oversight over two areas. One is in community development, including disaster relief within our state. And the second one is what's just called Intercultural Ministries, which means working with culturally, linguistically diverse churches, communities, diaspora, migrant groups.
Okay, so your name is Marbuen Diaz, so it's not really easy to guess what your ethnicity is. But do I detect an Australian accent there? What would be, cultural heritage?
Yeah, it's a bit of a confused one. So I was born in Mindanao, Philippines. So that's all the way down south of the Philippines. Lived 10 years of my life there. That's why I know two languages from that country. And then moved to Australia when I was 10 years old and learned how to speak Australian. But even though there is a bit of an American accent there, you can kind of hear because of the American influence in Philippines. And my name, just to confuse things even further, is Spanish.
Yep. So you're a real child of the world, as it were, a global
Yeah.
That's really good. Tell me a little bit about your work, really, what you do. Particularly, I'm very interested in the community development, but please do feel free to share your heart because you are, for me, the typical world changer from a different country, but changing the world in the world where you inhabit, as it were. Tell me what that's about.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you saying that. For me, it's a natural kind of progression and formation for me as an immigrant here to Australia, coming to Australia when I was young, and then navigating where I was not the dominant group, when I was a minority group, and I was made to feel like a minority group. So for me, that's really sent me into this formation in terms of what does it mean to be a flourishing community? What does it mean to be a refugee or an alien or an immigrant in a country, but trying to call it home? And so that sent me into the work of church ministry, firstly.
Yeah.
Then after that, knowing that the communities actually needed practical help. That's when I started exploring community development work. I started doing some education work as well. And more recently, some mental health counseling kind of work as well. And so now I've found myself, because I've been a church minister for more than 25 years, I'm finding myself having oversight over these culturally, linguistically diverse communities, predominantly in churches, but having a variety, like all the way, like just people who want to migrate to Australia, but also refugee backgrounds as well. And so I've found myself, because of my own personal experience, arriving now at a place where I want to help families to transition into that as well.
I love that. I mean, I really like the word flourishing. I mean, when I think about my own core values and the things that I aspire to do, I always imagine the world returning to Eden, a place of flourishing, and whatever I do, whether it's about working with economically marginalized or more disadvantaged groups, it's about helping them to flourish. So tell me exactly what it is you do and the outcomes from the work that you do with these communities.
Yeah. So, I mean, currently the the main thing I'm doing in helping is that there is, because like I mentioned, that these communities, these migrant communities, sometimes refugee communities, they are the minority. So there is the dominant culture with its dominant systems that just assumes that everyone fits into that system. And so one of the main things I'm doing is helping, on one end, help these migrants transition.
Yeah.
And, a parent's perspective to a child's perspective to a grandparent's perspective is quite different. They're going through different kinds of transitions. And so helping communities, whether they're part of a family or they're individual, transition into this dominant culture that is a very foreign kind of way of doing things. So trying to help them transition practically, whether it's getting a job or finding a place where they can meet as a community, different things like that. On the second level, I'm also helping the dominant culture systems and processes change and adapt so that there is more cultural intelligence within the pathways, systems, and processes. Because I think in the end, our systems and processes would want to serve the people rather than the other way around.
Yeah, especially when you have immigrant communities and it's all changing. I love that. It sounds quite bespoke, though. I mean, what's the team like? Because, no one size fits all. And I guess people's needs will be different. So it must be hard going sometimes. Are there some particular stories that highlight how important this is and the effectiveness of what you're doing on both sides? For the dominant culture, but also for the immigrant culture.
Yeah, I think there's certainly some stories there. There's plenty actually, but I guess where my mind comes to is I was working, for example, with a refugee community that's from Myanmar, Burma, and Myanmar, Burma has not only one people group but many different people groups.
Yeah.
That's actually been part of the strategy of the dominant oppressing government in that side of things, where they would just divide people and then conquer. And so part of then when they come to Australia, like they're very strong in their ethnocentrism, but now they're realizing that they're not the center. And so they're just learning how do we keep and maintain aspects of our culture while understanding that the future of our community, even our kids right now, are all actually going to transition into a different kind of home and community. And so part of the work that I've been able to do is to establish some educational components within their leadership systems so that, where it's not all dependent on Marbuen Diaz, it's actually trying to empower the local leaders in those local communities, and then they become their own leaders and they will lead their own communities. And then at the same time, I'm trying to guide running different workshops or different training for our dominant culture systems so that it becomes more culturally safe of creating pathways for those communities.
That's wonderful. Now, Australia is a big place, and you keep saying Australia, but I'm sure you're not. Are you working across the country, or are you in a specific place in Australia?
Well, yes, I do work across the country, but the specific place that I work in is a state called New South Wales, ACT. And the city that I'm located in is actually a city called Sydney, which is the most culturally diverse city in the whole country.
It's probably the one where everyone visits as well. Well, most people.
Yeah, so people know the Opera House, Harbour Bridge. Yes, you're right. Yeah.
That's fantastic. I love that you even started dropping some names. So I'm going to have to press you now for if it's my first time coming to Australia, and I choose to come to Sydney as most people would. So you've mentioned the Opera House, Sydney Opera House, probably the most famous landmark. What are the places most people make sure that they get on their bucket list to see, and what do you think they should be thinking about doing?
Yeah, it depends on the time of the year, but I would say that they definitely need to see the Opera House and the Harbour Bridge. The good thing is they're right next to each other in the main city or the business district. It's actually right there.
Yeah.
If you want to then travel and see some of the landmarks, it's called the Blue Mountains. If you go all the way out west, it's probably 2 hours out west, and then you that it's a more a scenic, environmental kind of landscape.
Yeah.
And then see and make sure that you get to visit the animals as well. So you can see a kangaroo or a koala. And if you're more bold, then see some. One of the most we have the most dangerous snakes and spiders, the most poisonous snakes and spiders as
I
well.
see. And they deserve to be visited too, is what you're saying. I think I'll skip that one.
I mean, they can be visited, but a lot of the times they're just out in the wild, so
Oh, wow.
they might just visit you.
Oh, goodness. Okay, in that case, then tell us where to avoid if we were
Yeah, yeah.
there. Yeah. Where do you think, what are the tips though for keeping safe? Because even though we're laughing
You know,
about it, we know a lot of people who've gotten.
yeah, of course,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, to keep safe, the brown snake is probably the most common one here.
Okay.
But I mean, if we just keep in mind that the brown snakes or the snakes are actually more afraid of you than you are of it, and they actually want to avoid you.
Okay.
So if you're just making sure you have if you're going for a walk, because that's where you'd usually find them in nature. So if you're going for a hike or a walk, then you just have enclosed, shoes, and just be mindful where you're walking most of the time. But they most of the time try to avoid you unless you're trying to threaten it. Yeah.
Okay. Yes, and the tarantulas, do they try to avoid you as well?
I mean, I actually don't know if we have any tarantulas, and they're not poisonous.
Oh, okay.
The commonly poisonous one here that we have in many places, including my backyard, is the redback spider.
Goodness. Why are you living with redback spiders and how do you avoid them or get
I mean, they just pop up in different places, so we just spray it, and then hopefully it doesn't get us.
Okay, I like your optimism. Goodness. Okay, wonderful. And what about the food? What can people expect?
Yeah, there's definitely a strong Asian influence here, especially here in Sydney.
Okay.
So Sydney being on Australia being on the southern part of Asia,
Yeah.
there's it's close to the Southeast Asian countries or South Asian countries, and so a lot of the food influence is from there. And so you will get all the different types of Asian food here. But with Sydney being quite diverse, you will find all the different types of food, depending on which suburb you're going to. Probably similar to a lot of main cities around the world, but we certainly have a lot of that diversity here. If you want to try it as well, there are a lot of our First Nations folk here have a lot of great food and native kind of native plants and elements. So there are some in restaurants that do that as well.
Oh, that's interesting. And I'm glad that you brought that up. For those who may not understand or who may be hearing the term First Nations, can you just explain what that means and why that's important?
Yeah, and so that's really important for us. It's really important for me. That's part of my side of doing community development is social justice.
Yes.
And so that's really important to me because the First Nations peoples have been here for hundreds of thousands of years, and they're one of the they are the longest culture and people groups that have maintained their culture. And so they span across all of Australia. They never ceded their land, and so that's part of our colonial history story. Australia still being part of the Commonwealth as well. Right. And so our First Nations have never ceded their land. And so they continue to be resilient. But unfortunately, in colonial history, there has been some horrific stories of what's been done to their people. So that continues to be a big social justice issue today.
What do you mean by they've never ceded their land? Because for many people, they're wondering, oh, is it that they never planted anything, But I'm sure, yeah.
That's really an important question. And the thing is, there's a long answer to do it justice. But the main part that not ceding their land is because when the colonial people came here, they said that there were no people here. The term was terra nullius, no man's land. So that was the justification to take the land now called Australia, because it was no man's land. It was terra nullius. Yes. They considered the First Nations people, the Aboriginal and the Torres Strait Islander, as part of the flora and fauna. And so that is why that is a major injustice. And so it's important, at least for me and for people who believe in justice, that we always say that they never ceded their land. They never gave it up.
Yeah.
It is their land, and we continue to acknowledge that.
Yes. So beyond acknowledging it, what else are you doing, and what else could other people do just to help with that? Because, as you say, it is an injustice, but after so long, what can be done about it?
The beautiful thing is that we have a lot of First Nation leaders leading the way already, and they're doing great work. We've had some really, especially in the last year, some really unfortunate votes that went against our First Nation peoples having a bigger voice into governance. Well, not just governance, but a say in the governance of their own people.
Yeah.
But they continue to lead with resilience, with grace and compassion, and they continue to do that. And so at this current moment, the thing that I would say that I'm doing, but I would encourage other people to do, is to educate themselves, because a lot of the times they put it on the First Nations. You need to educate us about these things. No, we can actually educate ourselves. And when we're ready to join them and how they're doing the reconciling, restoring work, then let's join them, but let's not burden them in terms of getting them to educate us. So I would really strongly recommend people educate themselves around what's happened to this country, the history behind it, the injustice that's currently being done to them, and maybe ways that we can step in, because it can get quite paralyzing sometimes looking at the action points. But if you can pick one, then go with that one.
Yeah, and support it. I love it. There's never been a better time in history to find out information. So honestly, educating oneself is the least we can all do. So thank you so much for highlighting it. I love that. I mean, I love just, how passionate you are about the work that you do. And yes, I understand that you moved from the Philippines when you were 10, but would you say that being Filipino has shaped you in any way or influenced some of what you do? And if so, how?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's been part of my cultural pilgrimage, I call it.
Yes.
Where there was a point in time where I didn't like being Filipino here in Australia, because I just wanted to fit in with everybody. I wanted to be Aussie, as they call it, be Australian. I wanted to be like them, to eat like them, to just sound like them. But ultimately, in the end, there's a point where you look at yourself and you're like, I'm not like that. And so part of my cultural pilgrimage is integrating that. So integrating the language, the two languages I already know.
Yes.
Integrating, becoming a global citizen, that I actually have influence, or I can have some, and that's part of the work that I've done in the Philippines.
Yeah.
Partnership, community development work that I've done in the Philippines. But also, I think I've been able to understand and know that in the work that I do now, because I know what the migrant journey is like. One of the things that I was introduced to coming to Australia was at 10 years old, was I never knew what racism was until I introduced to racism. I didn't know how different I was until people told me, you are different. And you are different because of the color of your skin, the ambiguity of, I don't know what you are. Some people think I'm Mexican. Some people think I'm Nepalese. Some people think I'm Chinese. It's just like so the racial slurs come with all of that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I've got to see people who were strongly hospitable, the capacity of humanity to be kind.
Yes.
And so I got to see both sides of that. And I guess that's what gives me passion to fight against injustice.
Yes.
But also give me hope that humanity, we can be kind to each other.
Yeah. I love that. I mean, people have different experiences of Australia for sure, and you hear that. But I love that you've actually given it a more balanced view. So just to finish, I mean, it's so fascinating that I could keep talking to you about this, really. I know how passionate you are. But just to finish, two things before I ask you about more top tips for what not to bring when coming to Australia. Is there anything that you'd like to talk about or mention that we haven't covered at all? Anything that's on your heart? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's it's in two spaces. It's the same thing, but it has two different angles on it. Even though we address the idea of refugees, I guess there are refugees because there's something that pushed them out of their country.
Yeah.
There is conflict, and therefore there is this huge trauma that refugee communities go through. And I think that is the case with immigrants generally.
Yeah.
But then you can just imagine, or we could try to imagine the refugee journey. And so we have a lot of these different types of refugee communities,
Yeah.
and the huge trauma that comes from that context and experience, but also the intergenerational trauma that then gets on. And so then I just wanted to highlight, yes, that, but also the second aspect of that, which is the emerging generation from those communities.
Yes.
And so what does it look like? Some of the things that I'm trying to do, which I don't have solutions on, but trying to come around people who love and care about this area, is to imagine what it would look like for the emerging generation within that community, again, to be their own leaders in that space, to have a future ideation space for their own communities of what flourishing can look like with this unique intergenerational trauma that they are carrying.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you for highlighting that. That's so important. On the one hand, I know how potentially devastating it can be to carry trauma, through generations. And we see that around the world. I think most people don't even realize that science has proven that you can inherit those genes with the trauma in your DNA. I mean, it's such powerful stuff. And so to people who say, yeah, but why can't they just go to therapy and get over it? What would you say to them?
Yeah, I'd say that to those people that everyone addresses trauma in their own way and in their own journey, in their own time and pace. Just like they would not want people to rush them in their healing or rush them in their mental health well-being, we should not rush people in the complexity of their intergenerational trauma. So to grow some self-reflection on, how do I want people to treat me? That's how we should treat other people as well.
I love that. And it's wonderful, treating other people the way we would like to be treated. Is such a good note to end this on. And it's all about diversity, isn't it? Just giving each other grace, because everyone's different. Everyone's journey is different. And of course, everyone's healing path would be different as well. Thank you. That's really great that you highlighted that to us. Okay, and just to finish, Australia is known as a really tough border, the border crossing. Oh my goodness, we see the shows, we hear about it. You just remind us, if we're coming, the do's and the don'ts, because I think them to appreciate that.
Again, even as an Australian who've traveled out of the country and back in, we're all still scared of our own borders. Because Australia is an island. And it's that island that doesn't have, our borders are the ocean. So we can border on another country that can maybe come in. So we're very, very protective. And I think there are times where, rightly so, because it has affected the flora and fauna here. When you introduce something else to the wild, the ecosystem, then it's significant. And so the main thing that people need to, the top tip is, if you can eat it, a lot. Don't.
Oh gosh. All right. You heard it, guys. If you can eat it, if it's alive, don't bring it. Okay. All right. So only dead things that are non-edible, effective, should be in your suitcase. Okay. Good one. Okay. It's easy to remember. And then you will not be on TV.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, Marbuen, thank you so much. It's been a joy just to catch up with you again, to have this conversation, to learn from you, to hear your heart and your justice, your passion for justice, really. Just before we finish, how can people find you, connect with you if they wanted to?
Yeah, so if you look at the Intercultural or the justice space in New South Wales ACT for Baptist Association, then I'm the main person that you'll find. I have social media handles, but I'm not as big on social media. So
I understand that. That's great. That's fine. People will have your name anyway, so they can look you up and support you. And I very much hope they do. It's been a joy just to chat to you today. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining me on today's episode of World Changes Podcast. I hope you're feeling as inspired as I am by today's conversation. Remember, the power to create change is within each of us. If you were inspired by today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, share it with a friend, and leave us a review. It really helps to spread the word and inspire even more world changers. And be sure to follow us on social media at World Changers PC for updates, behind the scenes content, and more inspiring stories. Until next time, keep exploring, keep making a difference, and remember, you can be a world changer.
The World Changers podcast is produced by Humanized Live and presented by AmickyCarol. Visit theavocadofoundation.org to find out more about how the Avocado Foundation is tackling global inequality through education, stewardship, and financial literacy.